Wonderful. Actually, let me reshare. Okay, everyone. Thank you all for coming and welcome to the OWASP London chapter. Tonight we are celebrating 25 years of OWASP. So I do have some slides about it. We are live streaming on YouTube. Simon, can you hear us on live stream? Yes. Awesome. So we are live streaming tonight. So as you can see, we're in this lovely venue called Tesla.io. Tonight's meetup is sponsored by Avacor and Men.io. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Stepanyan. I'm one of OWASP London chapter leaders. We have 3 chapter leaders here, myself, Andra Letz, and Sharif Mansour. Fortunately, both Andra and Sharif are unwell tonight, so they cannot make it. So it's just me, but I have lots of helpers and volunteers. If you would like to volunteer and help run the next event, please come up to me and say hi. I encourage you to share this event on social media. Please tweet, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, whatever about this event. Please use the hashtag OWASP London. We are on most social media platforms. You can mention us because we're OWASP London everywhere. Quick reminder of our code of conduct. We are a very comfortable and welcoming community to everyone. So we ask everyone to be nice and respectful to each other. And if you want to find out what our code of conduct says, the URL is on the screen. Agenda for tonight, I'm going to do a bit of an intro with an update on what's happening at OWASP and a little bit of historical slides so you can see what OWASP website used to look like in 2001. It's quite amusing. Then we're going to have Amir speaking about hidden path to large-scale LLM exploits and how to view it from the attacker's lens. Then we're going to have Simon doing a live demo of how to do secure development with agent skills. How do you secure your agents? And then we're going to have a break when we're going to consume our cake. And if you haven't taken a picture of the cake and shared it on social media, I encourage you to do so. Because we're going to have the cake during the break, and then we're going to have Ristic talking about the hidden dangers that we usually don't pay attention to because we think, oh, HTTPS, TLS, it just works, right? What can possibly go wrong? But we'll find out what can you do to secure your certificates estate. And then we're going to have a prize giving, and then we're going to go to the pub for the after party. Now, how many people are here for the first time by the show of hands? Oh, awesome, awesome. So many. Thank you for making it here. I have no idea how you found us. To make sure you don't miss the next event, please make sure you follow us. We have a webpage. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Meetup. We're on Eventbrite. We're on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky, on Mastodon. So please do follow us. I will share the date of the next event. It's going to be April 14th. So it's literally in 2 weeks' time, and you're going to have some amazing speakers as well. Now, a bit of announcement about our Meetup exit, because Meetup got acquired by a company called Bending Spoons. It used to be owned by WeWork, and they increased their prices for enterprise subscribers by 300%. Because we're a non-profit foundation, we cannot really afford that price hike, so we will be exiting Meetup. So we will be launching our new website soon where we will have a event booking functionality. For now, I'm going to ask everyone, if you are a Meetup user, please also download and install Eventbrite app and just follow us using OWASP London, eventbrite.co.uk. Now, for those of you who haven't taken a photo of this QR code, if you want to win this awesome Lego set consisting of 793 pieces. My God, this car has a very detailed engine. Yeah, please do register for the raffle, which we will have at 8:45 p.m. The raffle registration and raffle is only valid for people in the audience. So I know there are people watching us live on YouTube. Sorry, you cannot win this prize. It's only for people here in the audience. Next, I'm going to try to play our YouTube video. If it works. Sometimes the audio doesn't work. If it doesn't, it's okay.
OWASP is a nonprofit that stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a community of developers, technologists, and evangelists improving the security of software through tools and resources. OWASP has 100+ active projects, and new project applications are submitted weekly. Projects are open source and are built by our community of volunteers, people just like you. Community and networking. There are hundreds of local chapters worldwide and thousands of members. Meetings are free and open to everyone. They include training, talks, and networking opportunities. Education and training. OWASP hosts many events each year. They are a great way to improve your skills, build your professional network, and learn about new trends in the industry. One of the many ways you can get involved is to become a member. The membership benefits include discounts for events and trainings, your own OWASP email address and Google Workspace access, a vote in our OWASP Global Board elections, and recently, OWASP added a brand new member benefit, access to hands-on application security training through the OWASP Secure Flag Open Platform. Join us and become a member today.
Awesome, it worked. Usually this video never works. But I have to tell you a little bit about history of OWASP because we're celebrating 25 years. OWASP was created in September 2001 by this gentleman, by Mark Curphey. Mark has launched a mailing list which was called WebAppSec. We have one person here as a speaker who I know has been involved in this as well. And this is how we started. This is what OWASP website looked like in 2001, right? So hey, look at all this. So this is awesome, but what it says, we are extremely pleased to finally officially launch OWASP and the Open Application Security Projects. For those who have been following the site and mailing list for the past 8 weeks, will be part of the 250,000 web hits, and this will be nothing new. So there you go. This was the OWASP website in 2001. Now, Mark Curphey presented an amazing keynote talk about the history and future of OWASP. This was at our 20th anniversary 5 years ago. So if you haven't seen it, the YouTube video is there. You can scan this QR code and please watch it because it's fantastic, because it's a very nostalgic trip back to 25 years ago when application security was unheard of, when SQL injection was absolutely everywhere. It's a little bit like now, right? We have prompt injection everywhere in AI, right? And people don't care about it. So 25 years ago, there's a SQL injection on every single website and people didn't care about it because everyone wanted to have an e-commerce website and sell stuff on this cool thing called the internet. Now, of course, OWASP is famous for its OWASP top 10 list of most critical application security risks. Now, not many people know a fun fact about OWASP top 10 because the idea came to Jeff Williams, our co-founder, in a shower because he was so angry one day, so frustrated, trying to convince senior executives that they should start paying attention to application security risks. And no one cared. And no one was taking this seriously because everyone only cared about making money. It's like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, vulnerabilities. Who cares? And he was so frustrated. An idea came to him in the shower and he said, okay, let's give them a top 10. And it did work. And the reason why it worked and OWASP became so famous is that back in 2004, payment card industry, which is Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, got together and they said, enough of the SQL injections. Everyone's getting breached. Everyone's credit card data is getting leaked. We don't have enough plastic to print and reprint credit cards for everyone whose data has been breached. Let's do something about it. So they launched a standard called PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, in 2004, and they mandated that the web application should be developed on secure coding guidelines such as OWASP guidelines, and the top 10 most critical web application security vulnerabilities is the list that everyone should be reviewing their web applications against. And this was the list in 2004. So today, OWASP is huge. We are in 71 countries. We have 250 chapters just like this one. We are in London, but there are 250 cities all around the world. Similar to us, 178,000 members worldwide. In the UK, we're not just in London. If you live in a different city, there might be an OWASP chapter close to you. So we have chapters in other UK locations as well. Now, brand new, which is literally 2 hours ago, OWASP released its first ever impact report. So this is the impact report 2025. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. It's a great document where you can find out all about us, all the good stuff that we did back in 2025. It has a list of projects. It has a list of all the initiatives. It has a list of all the conferences. And of course, it is talking about the future. So please do check it out, because for the first time ever, we released it. And of course, because we are open source, nonprofit foundation, you will find all the information about what we do, how we work, including our budget and our financials. So it includes financial report. Now, for those of you who are members or want to become a member, reminder that we have some member benefits in the form of training. So you can access to otherwise commercial training systems such as Secure Flag, which includes labs, and we have Checkmark's code bashing, secure coding training available as well. Now, OWASP has a paid membership. You don't have to pay to come to any of our meetups. As you can see, this is free. But if you become a member, you will get access to these benefits, and also you will be able to vote, right? As you heard in the video. We also have a student membership. If you are representing a company, please consider becoming a corporate supporter and supporting us, because you will get corporate supporter benefits as well. So you will be able to exhibit at our OWASP Global AppSec conferences worldwide. And if you'd like to become a member, just go to owasp.org/join. There's one extra benefit on top of all the ones listed. If you become an OWASP member tonight and show me the confirmation email, I will give you this super rare vintage retro sticker, because this logo is no longer an official OWASP logo. But I have a stash of the stickers from the year 2016, and I've been giving them away because OWASP stopped doing the stickers. So you can have you can see it on my laptop here, right? So you can decorate your laptop with a super rare sticker that only the selected few people who are paid members of OWASP are. So please do come and see me if you want one of the stickers. Quick update on our chapter co-leader, Sharif Mansour. People who come to these events quite often know that Sharif was diagnosed with cancer last year in June. He was diagnosed with leukemia, and he urged everyone to donate blood. OWASP has been running a blood donation campaign. As you can see myself, I went to donated blood. The blood donation pod is just off Oxford Street, so it's very easy to get there. It only takes 1 hour to donate blood and save someone's life. Now, Sharif is actually getting better, so he had lots of courses of chemotherapy, and he had a bone marrow transplant. So he's expected to make full recovery, fingers crossed. So hopefully we will see him later on this year. Now, obviously, we are a vendor neutral organization, but we're supported by lots of companies. And I would like to say thanks to many of our supporters. These companies support our chapter, OWASP London, and if you would like to support us as well and have your logo, that would be great. If you have a space like this and you can host a similar event, please come and talk to me, because we can be in your offices next time. For tonight, I would like to say a big thank you to our host here, which is Tessel. Let's give him a big round of applause. And people who paid for pizza, drinks, and prize, that's Avacor and Men.io. Right, so we are celebrating our 25th anniversary. I hope you all have seen the cake. The cake has been kindly provided by, so this is what the cake looked like at 20th anniversary, and you've seen our new cake. The cake has been provided by Sweet Nibble Mexican Bakery. So if you'd like a cake like this, please make sure you check it out and order your cake from the bakery. Now, one other thing that I've been doing is I've been giving away digital stickers. So digital stickers NFT. So there is a something called proof of attendance protocol. And people used to ask me, Sam, can you give me a certificate of attendance that I was here? I need it for my CP points or whatever. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Can I do it digitally? And I figured out that there is an NFT that I can use. And it's actually being used widely by many conferences worldwide, mostly by Web3 and blockchain related conferences. And I was like, hey, let's bring a little bit of blockchain and Web3 goodness to OWASP, because this is actually a very good use case, right? So you can celebrate and demonstrate to everyone that you actually were here, because you can only collect this NFT from me tonight. There's no other way of getting this. And those of you who attend these events, you know that I've been playing with AI, and I've been asking AI to generate photos of our WASP from OWASP logo, and in different circumstances, in different outfits, right? And different things. For example, you can see in December, we had our WASP watching television, all wrapped up in a blanket, right? But what I have for tonight, I'm just going to quickly flip and show you what our WASP is doing tonight. You can see our WASP tonight is celebrating its 25th anniversary in a birthday hat and looking at the birthday cake. So if you would like to get that digital sticker, please do come. If you don't have a crypto wallet, that's okay, because all you need is an email address, and you can add it to your wallet once you configure it. Okay, so now we're very quick announcement of a very big conference, which will be happening in June. So we're going to have a OWASP Global AppSec in Vienna. So we have, I think, most sponsorships sold out for it, unfortunately. So the next big conference is going to be in San Francisco. But if you're an organization who is keen on making sure your employees, your developers, your security engineers are following all the latest practices, and they're aware of all the latest trends and latest research in the field of AI security and application security, please support and send your employees and help them to go and train, because we have 3 days of training and we have 2 days of conference split across 5 tracks, which will be in Vienna at Austria Center, Vienna, on June 22nd till 26th. So first 3 days are training, and 25th and 26th of June are going to be the main conference. Now, OWASP is known for its open source projects. We have not just OWASP Top 10, we have 250 free and open source projects for use by everyone. So please go and check them out. We had a very good training event as well, organized by Shruti. Shruti, can you give everyone a wave? Yay! So we had an amazing training here, including penetration testing, hacking Android applications, API security training. I think Grant is here who delivered that training. So we plan to, yes, there's Grant. So we plan to repeat this next year. So again, if you want to get professional training from OWASP, you can register for next year. Now, because there are so many of you, a quick reminder how you can ask questions today. Obviously, I'm just one person on the microphone. If you come up with a question during the talk, please use this website on your mobile phone, slido.com/OWASP, and you can just type your question, and then I will pick it up and I will ask the speaker. So now I would like to introduce Amir Shahmiri from Mend.io, who is an application security expert working in our industry for quite some time. And tonight is going to talk to us about the hidden path to large-scale LLM exploit. Let's all welcome Amir to the stage. Thank you.
All righty.
Find a small table to place.
No worries. Now let me connect this up. Can we see the screen?
And you should be able to share your screen.
Just by the USB-C?
No. Just on Zoom.
Okay. No, I'm not connected to Zoom. Give me 2 seconds.
Someone I will unmute you.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi.
Do you have the Wi-Fi?
Yeah. The Wi-Fi password is spec-driven. Yes.
Yep.
Spec-driven as application these applications.
All good?
Yeah, exclamation mark.
Fantastic.
And then you need to open the browser, accept terms.
Fantastic. Let that do what it needs to do. Right. Jump on.
That's your slides.
Slides is ready, yeah. Where is the Zoom link?
Zoom link is in your email. You should be Zoom link email from me.
I didn't receive one today.
Uh,
Ah, great, fantastic.
Number one. Okay, I'll let you.
Is everything else there? Brilliant. Righty. Let's start the screen.
Great.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
We got there in the end, guys. So great to meet you all. My name is Amir Shahmiri. I am a senior sales engineer at Mend. Worked in the application space for a very long time. Big thank you to the OWASP team for everything they do. Heavily used in the industry. So yeah, great to be here. Now, today what we're going to go through is the impact of indirect attacks, how it's changing with the ever-changing world of AI, and how we can protect ourselves when it comes to, obviously, AI attacks, and sort of what we need to do, right? Now, I want you to think of two hypothetical circumstances. What happens when we launch an empty HTTP server and log the traffic? Well, over time, we start to see a lot of requests, not always real ones, right? They could be just trackers trying to go through it, find pages that are there, trying to find vulnerabilities and exploit our websites, right? Something that happens day to day, we know that there's crawlers doing this. Now, what would happen if we started to use a lot of open source libraries in our code base? Well, as we've seen all too well, a lot of malicious packages could appear. We could have a lot of exploits within the actual libraries that we're using, right? So supply chain attacks that are causing havoc within our applications by design. Untargeted attacks aren't new. They've been happening for years, right? Whether it's on the actual server side, looking for vulnerabilities, whether it's on the library side, this is something that's been happening, right? So there's been internet-wide scanners, malicious open source, fake or compromised packages. We all know about those, right? Phishing campaigns, waterholding, so fake websites, or even malvertising, ads that are causing havoc by design to try and get you to breach your data. So what is new? Well, AI agents. As we know, agents are being used more and more nowadays, right? So if we look here, we've got a simple AI sort of agent that's working here, right? There's an end user, there's some tools it's using, it's connecting to the LLM provider. But what's changed? Well, we've now got two places where attacks can take place. We've got the direct prompt injection from the end user to the actual model, right? So asking the model to perform a behavior in a different way that it's not expected to. But now we've also got indirect prompt injections, right? The tooling the agent has access to. This is a new landscape where we can start to see vulnerabilities, and it's something that hackers are exploiting right away. So if we take a look at a traditional ChatGPT workflow, you're asking it to go to a website. It's going to go to Google, find us an actual website, right? And then it's going to start to read the actual page that it's going to. So there's two tools that agent now has access to. One to search, one to open. Now at a glance, there's not too much malicious content there, right? There's nothing that stands out glaringly obvious that can be actually problematic. But what if Google starts to return to us compromised websites and we start to open them? Our agents start to go to these compromised websites and they start to perform malicious acts, directing to specific websites, exfiltrating the data and sending the data that your agent has about you. Well, that is problematic. And that's how you can start to very, very quickly lose your data, whether it's around your preferences, your name, your email address, your credit card details, whatever your AI might be using in the background that it knows about you, we can now exfiltrate this data very, very easily. So when we think about it, hackers can exploit this at scale very, very easily, right? All they need to do is set up an endpoint. They need to launch content sites to be digested by AI agents. And they just need to pay for SEO and GEO. Put it in front of you. get your agents to actually digest this information and start to cause havoc very, very easily. It's very simple, but very, very powerful. And that's exactly why ChatGPT decided to add some protections, right? It saw that this was a problem, and it saw it needed to do something about it right away. So what it first and foremost did, it limited the read page tool that it has to make sure that it's not reading absolutely everything you provide to it. It added guardrails for both the calls and after the execution, right? Making sure that we're looking at what's going on. Are we actually having real interactions, safe interactions? But it's also fine-tuned its models to make sure that it's catching up on these issues and trying to prevent them in the first place. But then came ChatGPT Atlas, an AI-generated browser that has access to everything you have and has more tooling than your AI agent did before. The landscape has just widened, right? The more tools you give to your agents, the bigger the impacts can be on the attack surface. We've now got web pages. We can actually digest images that have prompt injections. We've got our credit card data. So let's say, for example, we've got a tab. I'm on Barclays. What happens if someone actually does a prompt injection and starts taking all my money out of my account? Atlas is going to let them do that, right? So when we think about it, the more tooling we give our agents access to, the bigger the problem. And that's exactly why the OpenAI CISO turned around and said, prompt injection is an unsolved security problem. It's something that's going to take place. We know it's going to happen, right? But you need to have tools in place to make sure that you're safer because it's going to happen, right? You need to be able to be privy to the problem, not just take it on face value. Up till now, everything we've been thinking about has been around, let's say, agent usage. But this is also apparent with encoding agents. Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot. Again, they have access to the tooling. AI-generated code has been done 24/7. Developers are using it. I use AI-generated code myself, right? You can't get away from it. So you need to now understand exactly the ramifications of that AI-generated code. Adding compromised libraries into your actual packages. Turning around and actually giving data into your code, right? It's now got access to your organization code, and very, very quickly, we can compromise them. So landscape is changing, but it's about what you do with it. So the more agents tools we have, the bigger the attack surface, right? If we have access to web pages, if we have access to documents, PDFs, whatever it might be, we can now have a higher impact on exactly what the problems are. So for example, exfiltration, corruption, manipulation, whatever you can think of, AI agents are going to do, right? And this is essentially the future of untargeted LLM attacks, sorry. So we've got malicious websites that will be digested, right? By design causing havoc, supply chain attacks in essence. We can have malicious ads on genuine websites, which is even scarier, right? So you need to worry about the actual ads you're digesting. But what about content on X, for example? What if there's prompt injections there and you're scraping that? You need to now worry about the landscape you're ingesting and try to figure out how you can save yourself from the problems that it's causing. If you take anything away from today's slides, I want it to be this. If an agent has the means to do harm, someone will exploit it. If you give your agent access to credit card details, someone's going to exploit that. If you give an agent access to your code, someone's going to exploit it. You need to protect your assets, trust, but verify. So what can we do about it? Well, there's two talk tracks, right? As developers, we're creating the code, we're using these agents, we're building out these applications using AI. What can we do about it to make it safe? But also as end users, is there anything we can do? Well, as a developer, first identify what you're doing. What do we have access to? Review the actual tooling your agents have access to and limit them. Follow least privilege, right? It doesn't need to have admin access to everything, right? It might need to have access to your code base on one file, two files, but it doesn't need to be an admin user all over. You can actually start to use guardrails around the tools. As we've seen, ChatGPT is doing this already, right? Making sure that we've got mini models monitoring the interactions and seeing exactly what they're doing. But then we can start to harden the prompts that we're instructing our models with, making sure our instructions are safe and secure so our models behave in the intended ways that we want them to. And last but not least, applying red teaming, making sure that we understand that the actual guardrails, the prompts that we've put in are working in the intended ways. Now, as a user, you can't do anything, right? But I don't want to make you scared about using AI because obviously ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, they've already put these guardrails into place. They've already thought about these security issues. So you can see here some examples. I've tried to trip up Gemini, I've tried to trip up ChatGPT, and it's not letting me, right? They're quite good at making things secure. And that's why by design, if you're asking AI a question, it takes some time. You don't get an instant response like that. It's because it's evaluating what you're asking of it. Is this a safe request? Is it not? If it's not, we'll block it. But what about all the other agents out there? The internal ones, those N8N workflows you've created for your organization, those internal chatbots that you've created that have access to all of your HR data. You need to think about the attack surface and really figure out how you're using AI, but also the impact it can have to your organization without having these guardrails and red teaming in place. Short but sweet, I hope. So any questions?
Second, we need a microphone. Otherwise, people will not be here.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. As you said that, for example, if we look in the past, in our history about security attacks and such, and now if you think away in terms of now connect AI or even agentic AI or even much more higher levels of intelligence, don't you think the game has completely, totally shifted from 180 degrees now, basically?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously with AI being used now, attacks are happening much quicker. That's inevitable, right? So yes, things are happening quicker. You need to worry about the issue quicker. It's changed the narrative. The attack surface has widened, but the traditional application security methodologies still come into place. You still need to make sure that the things you're using are secure. You still need to verify the actual tooling you're using. You still need to have the guardrails in place. So back in the day, it was SCA and SAST for your code, right? Guardrails are now looking after the actual usage of your AI agents. Now, AI-generated code is still code. So the traditional methodologies will still take place. Scan it, make sure there's no vulnerabilities, weaknesses. But yes, things have changed, but both for the better and the worse, I would say. Applications are being created quicker, but also you want secure applications. So don't forget about the traditional methodologies.
So basically you're saying that at the end of it, so basically what you're saying is basically at the end of the day, the foundation is the same. It's just the building on top that you have to change a little bit, isn't it?
I would say so, yeah. The foundation is still very, very much the same. When you look at AI security in general, it's pretty much the same problem as we had previously, right? AI models can be referred to as third-party open source libraries. They have supply chain attacks as well, right? Components have the issue. The problem hasn't changed. It's just a new stepping stone to solving it. So the traditional methodologies you had for third-party open source usage, scanning your prompts, SAST, pretty much, right? You still need to have those in place as well. No worries.
Amir, I have a question which came online. Amir, what is your take on Claude Code Auto Mode and prompt injection protections that rely on AI, which are non-deterministic by nature? Is it an architectural concern, the Claude Code Auto Mode?
I would say that the vendors are trying to give protection methods, right? They're trying to put things in place. It's easier. Put protections into place so we're having these issues remediated, right, by design. I wouldn't say that's the sort of silver bullet to fixing everything. I think that there needs to be additional metrics on top, right? Claude will try and give you safe code, but it still trips up, right? It might automatically try and remediate vulnerabilities, but again, it might still trip up. So you still need to have those traditional metrics in place, even on the code basis, to scan and make sure you know what you're having. You can't just trust AI-generated code. You need to verify it yourself as well.
Great. Question from Andy.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Amir. Quick, on one of your recommended actions, you had using red teaming on LLMs. Do you find that there is a difference in the quality of the output between using the LLM to do the red teaming, the same LLM, a different LLM, or would you recommend it's always a human that is doing that red teaming work?
So you can do a mixture, right? You can do human red teaming, which is great, but at scale, does it really work? No. So you might want to automate that aspect, right? The LLM that you're using, again, how has it been trained? What is it looking for? So I would say if you're looking to do LLM red teaming, make sure you're using a vendor that you trust, right? If you're using open source, verify, right? So I would say if you are using AI to do this task, don't remove the human element from it. Put yourself into it, make sure you understand what it's testing, and think about the things they may have not tested. Because again, AI makes mistakes. It's non-deterministic by design. So a result today may not be the same result tomorrow.
You find there's a significant difference between using, say, the benefit of using a different LLM, not different training data versus say the same one the red team as your attack?
I would say so, yeah, because obviously you want to use a model that's its sole purpose is to do red teaming, right? It's been trained to pick up on this sort of functionality. You don't want to just use the model that you're using within your application because it might not look for the same things. So I'd say try and use the best-in-class models for the testing.
And
No worries.
Josh, you had a question?
So you mentioned about this, right? And the person had the question. So in traditional security, we had an, alert that came up whenever there was some consequences. But with AI, it's not always an AI that is not secure. It might be output because of the data it has been trained, or because of the continuous data that it gets trained. So how, as a developer or how, as a security person, you look at that?
If you're looking for like a one-stop shop where you don't scan continuously, that's not the way for it, right? It's a continuous approach with AI. AI is adapting, AI is changing. So you need to have these sort of things in place to make sure that you're continuously reviewing what's going on. If you review all of your AI agents today and the access it has, it'll be out of date by next week because you may have added more, right? So you need to have a continuous approach, which is iteratively looking at exactly what you're doing, but also the impact that it can have to the organization. Like, for example, if you need to know your AI bill of materials, you know the components that you're using, that's a good starting point, right? But then what are the vulnerabilities that they have? What models have vulnerabilities? As you said, models may have vulnerabilities themselves.
Yep.
So if you know that and you start to change the models you're using, well, you're fixing the problem, but it's a continuous approach. It's not a one-time thing, I would say.
And as you mentioned in the next slide to this, like ChatGPT and other organization already putting security in place. But does it also apply to third-party applications that are using their APIs to get access to those models?
No. So obviously this is looking at the end user sort of workflow here. But if you're using one of their models, let's say, on those custom-built N8N workflows or the internal chatbots you've created, that's a new problem, right? So the last slide I showed you, what about the agents you're creating? That's the exact problem there, right? Those custom ones have their own security problems. So again, it comes down to the basics. What are they doing? What do they have access to? Do we need to reduce access? Do we need to change access? These are all the conversations. It all starts with knowing what you don't know. Having that difficult conversation internally, figuring out what your architecture is, and then working backwards.
Amir, I have a question which came online. The question is, Amir, what do you think about Claude's computer use tool and other similar systems that control your keyboard and your mouse? How do we minimize the impact of failures of AI, which is having full control of your computer?
Do you think that's a good idea to give somebody else complete access? You've answered your own question there. I probably wouldn't use it just yet, right? So I would say, again, trust but verify. If you're using this tool, don't give access to everything, right? If you're working for a large bank and you've just given AI access to your keyboard and mouse, good luck. You're going to be fired by the end of the week. So I would say make sure that you're happy with what you're giving access to. But yeah, again, AI is changing. AI is moving forward, right? You probably don't want to give access to your keyboard and mouse. That's just my opinion, but yeah. Take from it what you would, Sam.
One more question here.
You mentioned AI bomb. I don't really know how to frame the question, but I think you know where I'm going with this. How are we getting there? How are we going to get there as an industry? Because we're not there with software. So at Mend, we can generate AI bombs, right? So if you're looking for AI functionality, AI bills of materials, that's something we do now. We have a functionality called AI Premium, which is going to give you that AI bill of material, the risk information, the vulnerability, licensing. It's the same problem as open source usage, right? It hasn't changed. So if you want tooling, there's tooling out there to do all of this, right? You just need to look for it. Happy to do a demo. So if you want to talk to me after, I can show you exactly what I mean and how we can do it.
Right. Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, one more.
Thanks, Amir. I wonder if you had any thoughts about closed models, so Claude and Gemini, etc., versus some of the open source models, whether you have to think about security any differently with different types of models.
Absolutely, right? Not all models are the same. Different models have different security problems, right? If you take a look at Hugging Face, for example, they classify them as safe and unsafe, right? But that itself is untrustworthy because Hugging Face can misclassify stuff. So you really need to look into the details. Again, at Mend, what we do is we have a security team. We also have AI in the background that's evaluating these models. If Hugging Face says it's safe, we don't just take it on face value. We verify, right? It's a problem that's quite novel, right? It's still the same problem when you think about it, right? It's like reachability. Okay, this model's been declared safe, but am I using it in a way that's going to make it unsafe? Well, you need to verify, right? So I would say, yes, you still need to verify those open source models, just in the same way you would do with open source libraries.
Wonderful. Any more questions? Oh, was there one?
Hello. I was wondering about the point you had about hardening prompt, if you had any experience of what strategies are particularly effective. For example, if you're injecting unknown content into a prompt, is it effective just to sort of escape it, like put it in XML tags or something, or if there's a different strategy that you find works?
So what we do at Mend is we do it automatically using AI. So we evaluate the prompt that you've written, right? And we've seen, for example, the prompt that you've written may cause prompt injection by XYZ, right? So prompts are the instructions we give to models. If the instruction is tarnished, the model is inherently tarnished, right? So you want to make sure those prompts are really, really secure. So it's pretty much SAST for your AI instructions. Obviously, prompt by prompt, the recommendations are different. But what I would say is pass it into an AI model. Ask it, what do you think I need to improve? The same way you can ask AI, how do I prompt to get the best out of Claude to give me X, Y, Z? You can do the same for your prompt to harden it, right? AI is pretty good at solving security problems. You just need to use it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Get the mic to this side of the room. Probably last question here.
Here, I want to ask, like, how good of an idea it is to add a separate security layer between AI agents, which lets them ask for permission and authorization on temporary basis according to the actions, and then user can prompt them like for a expiration period, like a temporary token.
So that obviously depends on the AI provider, right? That you need to verify what the actual expiration is. You need to see what you're doing on that aspect. That's more on the architectural side. That happens after you know what you've given access to, right? Those are one of the safety nets you can put in. Have expirations. Make sure that the actual accesses are going to expire, let's say, after 30 days, right? Those are the type of safety nets you, as an end user, can put in for the architecture of your AI usage tooling. So again, fantastic point, right? You need to actually verify what you're doing. How long have I given access for? Do I need to have keys that rotate automatically? These are all the conversations you have after you know what you're doing. You can't fix everything until you know what the problems are, right? So you need to sit down, figure out what the problems are so you can fix the problems.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to thank Amir for a full talk.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And next up on stage, we have Simon. And Simon is an actual rock star because he was voted a rock star by Java community, by DevSecOps community. Simon's been in our industry for a very, very long time. He's running his own meetups. And obviously, some people who use Snyk probably know him from Snyk, where he used to run the community there. So now moved to Tessel and continuing to run development relations here. And Simon is going to show us a live demo. So we wish him best of luck and may the gods of live demos be kind to you tonight, Simon.
Thank you very much. Awesome, thank you very much. And actually, talking of rock stars, Sam, I noticed OWASP is 25 years old, and I thought, how long's Sam been with the London OWASP community? So I googled it.
17 years, 2008.
2008, you joined.
Yeah. And
2008. Let's see if AI is correct here. 2008, you joined. 2010, it thinks you became a member. 2015, you led the OWASP community.
Right.
I've led a number of communities, and running a community for over 10 years is insanely hard work.
It's
so
10
great
years.
job, Sam.
Right. Thank you. Over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, real pleasure to be here to speak to you all. I've known Sam probably like 6, 7, 8 years maybe, and I've presented a few times at OWASP. I usually actually take a selfie of myself with the crowd just to prove to my family I'm not just staying out drinking in London. But my kids, I think, are on the live stream. So hello, Joshua. Hello, Ollie. Make sure you go to bed at a reasonable time. Cool. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how we can use AI, agentic agents, to help us write secure code, identify issues in our code, and fix things in our code. We're also going to do some live hacking to prove that what is wrong in our code is actually wrong in our code, and we're going to exploit some issues. Yeah, my background is Sneak, and I've worked there from the early days for like about 6-7 years. So you'll probably see a little bit of that in today's session as well. First of all, who's using an agentic coding agent today? Like Claude Code or something like that, Cursor maybe, a few others. Who's a developer as well, out of interest? Okay, a good number. Right, we're going to do some live hacking. You don't need to be a developer here to do some live hacking. Okay, so when we are using something like Claude or Cursor or something like that, we can provide a number of instructions. The agent will work out an answer. It will spit me back an answer. It'll probably use its training data. It'll probably use some fine training, but it uses something really important to be able to give us an accurate answer, and an answer that we want. And that thing is context. Now, context is something that you can provide too much of, too little of, very, very easily. If you provide too little, it'll give me the agent will give me an answer back. That answer will probably not be the answer I would want. If I give it too much, it'll actually get overwhelmed, it'll get confused, and very often it'll give me the wrong answer. It'll do compaction, which is a stage where it removes a bunch of its context from its environment, and then you have to tell it all the same things again. And it gets very, very frustrating. When you start one-shotting actions, that's likely because you've got a really good amount of context for the agent to actually do what it needs to do. Now, recently, something came out called skills, and a skill is essentially a piece of context that you can wrap up, provide to an agent, and that agent will activate that skill based on a name and description that you provide that skill. And it will say, okay, I need some help with this task. Let me activate this skill. It'll give me instructions and guidance of how I need to do this thing. It'll learn, and then it'll provide that answer back. Now, skills, you can have any number of skills, too many, of course, and again, it will get overwhelmed, but any number of skills that you can provide this agent, it'll use it similar to how it uses tools. Again, there are some security concerns about just providing any old skill to an agent. And that skill can provide us with many things. It can provide us with, maybe it's advice of our coding practices. Maybe it's our security policies. Maybe it's good security best practices. And that's what we're going to show you today in this environment. Okay, so let me just grab something up. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've got no slides, by the way, so I'm going to hopefully live code the vast majority of this. Okay, so I'm going to come to an environment. Actually, let's show you an application first, a very, very straightforward and simple application. This is actually the Sneak application. It's an intentionally vulnerable application. We're gonna play with it. We're gonna do some attacking in just a second. It's a very simple to do application. I might say let's buy the OWASP 25-year cake. Let's become a member. Become an OWASP member, so I can get that, if nothing else, get that cool sticker, and so forth. There's also, I'll wait for Sam to take that photo. There's also the about page, which is an incredibly modest about page and not very good. That application that we're going to attack, and I'll ask you, I say attack, we're going to attack this application in just a second. Now, I've got my application here in my local environment, Node.js Goof. The first thing I want to do is I've got Tessel installed. I've curled Tessel on my environment. First thing I want to do is run Tessel init. What that's going to do is it's going to identify all the context that I need locally on my machine. Now, I have a package JSON. This is a Node application. I have a package JSON here locally on my machine. Ton of dependencies. So when I hit return there, it's going to say it's found 22 tiles to install. A tile package of context. So in this case, there are 22 libraries that we are using that we've just downloaded context for. That context can now be used by the agent when it wants to develop that application using those very specific libraries. It also detected that I'm using 6 agents to build my application, including Claude Code, Cursor, etc., etc. What this does now is when I run Cursor, it'll add various aspects in there to use that context. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to do a TESOL install of a very specific skill, which is called Cisco/software security. It installs that one tile and it gives me a little bit of information. I'll put that a little bit higher for folks at the back. It's telling me the quality of this skill is 84%. The uplift, the impact this skill is gonna provide is 1.78 times not having that skill at all. And security, yes, we have security for security skills as well. It's passed the security scan. I'll show you what that means in just a second. But for now, let me start Claude. And I'm going to say to Claude, and I'm in the application, in and around the application project code, I'm going to say, please, and we must say please, because right now we tell the agents what to do. That may not be the case, and they do have good memory. Please run a security review of this application using best practices. Okay, I hit return. It's going to think, it's going to find my best practice. It's installed this skill. Sorry, the skill has already been installed. It's activated that skill. It recognizes I need to do some security scanning. It recognizes I need to validate what I've got there. It's loaded that skill. I'll show you what's in that skill in just a second. But there's one thing I may need to do. In fact, let me move that just so I can see what's happening, because I don't have this running in auto mode, which means it'll probably ask me in just a second, oh, can I do this? Can I do that?
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop, absolutely. Actually, I don't need that. I need, let's move this up slightly. There we go. Okay, that'll interrupt me in just a second if it needs something from me. By the way, someone asked about auto mode. Yeah. What I would very, very much recommend, if you're doing anything like YOLO mode, which is -- dangerously skip permissions, or running in auto mode, which I think means it can write and read bash files or something like that, always, always, always run it in a container, right? Run it in a Docker container, a Daytona container, whatever container you want. Make sure it has access to what you want to give it access to. That way it can do whatever it wants. It's in its own little bubble. Don't do that like I would on your own laptop, because that's a bad idea. Okay, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this, here we go. Okay, this is TESOL. TESOL is essentially the registry here for these skills. So I can search for my Cisco software security skill, and I will find my Cisco skill there. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on files. Let's have a look at what's actually here first of all. Okay, I've got a skill MD file, and this file tells me really important things like when to use this skill, activate when doing these things, always apply rules. These rules must be checked on every code operation, and it tells me what I should be looking for. Context-specific rules, blah, 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 and it continues, and it continues, and it continues. Now, there is a huge amount, if I was to go back to files, there is a huge amount of detail here. In my rules here, I think, here we go, whereby, if I'm interested in input validation, let's say input validation injection, if I click on this, okay, input validation injection, this is a huge amount of information that we don't always want the agent to read fully every time. This is what we call like a progressive learning, progressive disclosure of context. As and when it needs to know this, it will be loaded in. And it depends what you ask for as to what it loads in. It chooses what it needs to load in. So yes, there could be a time when actually it loads the wrong thing in and it doesn't adhere to that. Sometimes it will load it in and still not adhere to it because it's an agent and it's non-deterministic. But essentially, there's a few things that we care about, and I'll talk about some of these stats in a second. But these rules, you can see, because it's loaded this skill, it's doing a full security check of my application, and it's saying, in fact, here's the input validation injection with, here's the rule, here's what's been broken, and it'll look through and tell me every single thing as part of this skill, whereby the code has gone against the instructions, the directives of that skill. What's super interesting is you can use skills here, not just to validate if my PR has introduced new issues or if my code base has issues generally. It can also use these skills when generating code. So I might say, let's generate some code, but adhere to the best practices of input validation if I'm creating a new input. Let's do authorization while I'm doing a login page. It'll understand what it needs to do. It'll understand the best practices and it'll adhere to those. So you can do it before, as well as during, and then maybe on a PR as well, and so forth. Very, very quick, very, very easy. And it's doing it while it's creating it, even before it's creating it, before it's giving me the answer, it's actually using that skill. So let's take a look at a couple of these, and then we'll try and attack the environment. So we have a few, well, quite a few criticals. We have a NoSQL injection, which is pretty interesting, on line 39 of index. We probably have a bunch also of third-party libraries that have been poorly used because we're using the wrong versions of them. In fact, it's not actually mentioned the third-party libraries here, I don't think. But I'm going to tell you one third-party library. In fact, it's also told me how things can be attacked, which is good. We'll actually try this attack in just a second. I'm going to show you first of all which, in fact, I can even say which third-party libs have vulns associated with them. And there's one library that I am using that it should pick up, which is called ST. Who's heard of the ST library? Few people maybe, Node folks, I'm guessing. So the ST library is a library that serves public content. And so if I'm using a vulnerable version, I will be vulnerable to something called path traversal. Lots of people probably know path traversal, directory traversal. It's essentially where I am serving up something from my directory, and there is a possibility that I could break out of that directory and get some data, get some information outside of the directory that I have access to. There we go. I think it's a medium. So there it is. Look, XT directory traversal. Okay, so if I go back to my application now, this is my application. You've seen everything that I've got on this application. I can add, I can remove. I've got an about directory or an about file. How would you attack this application for a directory traversal? Any thoughts? I'm expecting the best of the best with a security. Yes, at the back. The choose file. Yep.
There's a file upload functionality, right?
Yeah, basically with the file name, once you upload it, you can basically upload potentially the file in another directory.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good example. This is an intentionally vulnerable application. That is a different vulnerability. So our princess is in another castle. Any other ideas? I'll give you a clue. Something to do with this about. Wow, it looks just as good on the terminal, right? Great.
Dot slash.
So dot slash was the suggestion. In fact, I could even do just public. This is public. This is public stuff, though. Is this a vulnerability? I mean, it's the public directory. It's a stepping stone. This is information disclosure of something I don't need to disclose. Never, never, never show a directory. Yes, this is public, but yeah. So the gentleman said dot slash. Private, that's a good one. Yeah.
ETC password.
Okay, update is to do. Oh, look, become an OWASP member. So it's recognized. This is a real library. It knows dot slash is a directory traversal. It's taking us back to the home page. Okay, so it's found the it's found I'm doing a dot slash, doesn't like it, takes me to a safe place. Say again? A robots.txt? Where would that be? In public?
In public, yeah.
This is normally a site thing, but yeah, not much there. Dot slash was a really good idea. We're close. Let's do it again. Damn. Oh, you mean do it again like this? Yeah. I thought you were saying, you know, what's Einstein's theory of if you do insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different answer, right? But how many times do we do that with machines? Yes, at the back.
Oh yeah, curl is normalizing the path.
Curl is not normalizing the path, actually. So I'll save us a touch of time because I know we're short on time. It's not that. Is there any other way we can represent ... Encoding, URL encoding of a dot is, come on, this is OWASP. Someone must know. 2F is so close. 2F is a /. 2E. If I do that, bang, there's the public directory. We've just broken out. Okay, so I can do that as many times. Someone's wanted the etc password, right? All the way to the root. etc pass wd. There's my etc pass wd, right? So it's like it's pretty easy, right, to do that. In fact, let's do something slightly different. If I was to do that, I think there is an index. What was it? Index? No, it was root /index dot JavaScript. No, roots. Oh, cool. So now I'm in the application source code. I think it said 39. There was a NoSQL injection. Wow, it's big. Mongoose, yeah. Okay, it's about here. This looks like a good NoSQL injection here. So a NoSQL injection is slightly different to an SQL injection. Yeah, I see. Okay. A NoSQL injection here is what's happening is we are saying if the validator, if username is an email, then we do a user find expecting this to be a string. Okay, if that's not a string, something different happens. Let's actually attack it. Sorry, I was in the right place. So let me go back a little bit. I want to show you a few. Here's one I made earlier. Okay, this is me. I'm running an HTTP, effectively hitting the login page, passing admin@sneak.io as my username and super secret password as the password. And yes, that is actually the password. So if I was to run that, no host specified. That's not good. Oh, is it? I need to do it here probably. Okay, so I run that. I get a 302. I'm redirected to /admin. That works. That's the correct password. What if I was to do that with the wrong password? So here, in this case, password is wrong. I run that. We get a 401 unauthorized, of course, because the password's wrong. However, let's do a NoSQL injection. And a NoSQL injection is this. Let me put this up a touch. A NoSQL injection is where we're passing an object here, all right? And this object is, this gets executed actually. We're checking if empty string is greater, if the password is greater than empty string. That will return true. So actually now, when we do our check, where is our check? When we do our check, we're essentially doing a check for, where are we? Here. We're essentially doing a check that says, is the username, you know, what is it, admin@sneak.io, that passes. Is the password, and then we actually execute this thing to say, are we greater than empty string? Yes. And then it will pass me all it does is then pass me every username where the username is admin@sneak.io, right? So now I can pass this without, and in fact, did I actually run it? I didn't run it. If I run that, now we get redirected to admin, and I didn't pass a single password, right? That's not the password. So that's what a NoSQL injection is. So now what I'm going to say, I'm going to go back into Claude. Where was my Claude? Here's my Claude. I'm going to go back in Claude, and I'm going to say, right, let's fix. Actually, let's resume that last session because I want to make sure. Oops. Oh, shit. No, don't clear. Oh, that might have. Resume. That one. Okay. Right. So if I look at my context, This is my context. All this context was from that last session. So it's a nice, useful way of actually bouncing between sessions. Right. So now I'm going to say, okay, let's fix the no SQL injection what was it, roots/index.html, and let's update st to version 0.2.5 and restart the server. I didn't say please. No, I'm done with Claude now. Two independent changes. I'll do them in parallel. Excellent. So I'll say yes. Do whatever you want. Yes, do whatever you want. I know. Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So it's gonna update my st. It's gonna do an npm. It's reinstalling my npm dependencies, and it's also let's see what it does here. Okay, so it removes that. Okay, it's mandating that the password is a string. Okay, so sometimes it depends, again, non-determinism of a agent. Sometimes it checks to see if the type is a string, and if it isn't a string, it bombs out. This time it's actually casting the password into a string. So I'm basically either getting an object. I don't know my JavaScript, I'm a Java person. It's probably going to be some object ID or some object.toString or whatever that does. Someone will probably know. Okay, so it does that. Yeah, do whatever. I didn't even look at that. It's doing a kill. Excellent. Yeah, it can kill whatever you want. Restart the server, and the server's running. So now let's go back. Where did I do that? Oh, I've got too many open now. So let's go back. Let's run the NoSQL injection first. Unauthorized. We've got a 401 trying to do the NoSQL injection. Perfect. Next thing we want to do is we want to see if I can get my etc password. Cannot get. Right, so we've blocked two paths. Now, how can we do this if we were doing secure coding? We would say when we're building, we say, make sure when you're building this, you use the secure path, the secure defaults. The second thing is when we actually send that pull request, we have, who's got the hiccups? Someone's got the hiccups. So when we, I'm surprised that shock didn't actually stop your hiccups. That was weird, wasn't it? The second thing is when you actually create that pull request, you can run Claude in the background on that pull request, and you can say, in the same way you would run a sneak or a mend or something like that, and you can say, just make sure this is, it's like a code review basically, but my agent is doing that based on my best practices, my policies, company policies, security policies, style guides, all that kind of stuff. And then the third place is, of course, just generally when you are doing code reviews, generally, when you're doing red teaming, as was mentioned, that's when we can test for these various things. We know what's in our code. We know what we could be vulnerable to. Let's target that from an external point of view. Okay. Now, context is a living beast. Context is something that should be understood, improved, and live as our code changes and as model change and as agents change. We need to adapt. This is what these tests are for. Would we write code without testing it? Absolutely not. Do we write skills and provide context and not test it? Damn right we do, and we shouldn't. What we need to do is make sure that when we write our context, we make sure it adheres to best practices. We make sure that the context is actually doing what we want, and we understand which bits of context aren't needed or are working poorly in an agent. And that's where this evaluation comes in. So this evaluation, again, this is TESL. Everything I show here, by the way, on the TESL side, is completely free. You can go create an account and have a play with it. We have a few things. We have quality, impact, and security. Let's start with security. This is run by Sneak in the background. Sneak has some tools that you can essentially run against any of your skills. It's LLM as a judge. So the LLM is looking at the skill and trying to identify if there are things in that skill that can potentially harm you. So if, for example, I think the last speaker mentioned a web search, that would appear as something probably a little bit advisory. Just be just be aware that it's trying to do a web search, and the web search could provide you something malicious. You look at it and you make sure, oh, actually, this is coming from the OWASP site. I think I'm happy with that. There are other things that it could be actually a malicious skill, and it should pick up on those types of things. Quality. Quality is something which is, again, LLM is a judge tested, and it will identify if your skill has been written to the best Anthropic's best practices. And this is really important because there are things like discovery, activation, those types of things that are really important for the agent to actually pick it up in the right way. So we look at things like specificity, I hate that word, completeness, other things. Activation is another important one. And we will look at it, we'll provide you with advice as to how you can reword your description, your name, the actual content within your skill. There are a number of skills that we provide as well in, I think it's Tesla Labs, free skills to use that you can actually run and optimize your own skills based on this feedback as well. I think the CLI also has a -- optimize. It can also update, but this is super important. The second thing is the impact. How much better is the agent with the skill than without? If I go on evals, what you'll see is a number of real world scenarios that we run with the skill and without the skill. And we have evaluation criteria whereby if the solution that is created is done in a way that satisfies the evaluation criteria, you get the points. If not, you don't get the points, or you can get partial points. And you can see from here what is working and what is not. So in this case, uses Argon 2 ID. I don't even know what that means. It doesn't do it without the context. It doesn't do it with the context. Right, there's something wrong with my context, or my context is just missing something that says this. This may be an activation problem as well. No hard-coded secrets. I can't believe without context, Claude was very happy to write some hard-coded secrets, but with context, there's obviously follows the hard-coded secrets rule, and it passes that. In some cases, I'm not sure if there are any in this case, I don't think there are, it can actually regress. It can go from 100% maybe to 80%. And what that's saying is my context is confusing the agent. If it goes from 100 to 100, there is no context needed here. The agent is good enough by itself. So am I giving too much context that is actually confusing it? Context should be a living artifact that should live with your code. And as a result, as things change, as code changes, your versions should change. Your evaluation should be associated with your versions, and you should also test this across multiple agents as well. So this is just something that we supply to help you create the best context, the best skills that you can in order to use your agents as securely and as best you can. That's everything I have. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to, if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Awesome. I see a question there straight away.
If you go just a bit down, I'm just confused about one thing here. Yeah, so evaluated about 2 months ago, if you see.
Yep.
Is it the review that you make on the skills and on the data that we have, or is it the total evaluation that you make after? Because 2 months is a big time with context and everything. AI might hallucinate and drift a lot.
Yeah, great question. So every new version, this is because the version is also 2 months old. So it was done as I uploaded it and it was run. There are a couple of reasons why I might want to test. One could be the model's changed. And so I would actually run an evaluation passing a flag that says, use this model for your evaluation. And that's something legitimate that I would probably do, maybe more locally. This is more for guidance because different people are going to be using different models, and it's well worth running this. So you can use the CLI to run it with a model. This is going to be running, in this case, it's going to be running on Claude Sonnet 4.6. If it runs that again, even 2 months later, because the context hasn't changed, it should do exactly the same thing, or with non-determinism, close enough. You can kick off a new evaluation if you wish, and you can make changes to the scenarios, and you can make changes to whatever you want. But yeah, ultimately, you can kick that off at the CLI and then push that. You can push it locally, and then you can, with those results, you can push that if you make changes to the to remote as well.
Awesome. More questions? Yeah, there's one at the back.
So with LLMs, non-determinism is a big problem, right? Like with any evaluation. And do you run like tests multiple times to have an average score, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, non-determinism, I think we run these 3 times, then take an average. So with non-determinism, yeah, of course, if you run something multiple times, oh yes, it's 90%. Oh crap, I didn't change anything and it's gone down to 85 and then you feel bad. So yeah, that is a problem. But ultimately, you know, the thing you got to remember here is if it's 90%, that means, you know, if I run something in my local Claude, I'm not guaranteed 90%. Could be different every single time I run it. So it should be there as your gut feel that I now have data that I can go ahead and make changes to the skill as I want to. It should be an indicator of where you can update your skill. Yeah, great question.
Hey,
Yep.
yeah, ciao.
Hey.
Hey, sorry, on the quality of the plugin, right? You show like this one in particular, 85%.
Yep.
This one? Yeah. So long story short, basically these days we are delivering for Claude a plugin which is provided with multi-agent skills, orchestrator, so something around that. And we were working on the quality of the skills, and we did an experiment. We asked Claude multiple times, how would you improve these skills? And every time was, since I think it's not deterministic, right, was always returning like, oh yeah, you should do this to improve the skill or the agent profile, the surface, the whatever. So we ended up in a loop. Now, like, have you thought about this? Have you faced these issues as well?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you know, sometimes you can actually just run it a few times and it will come up, it will pick up something else that it maybe didn't pick up the first time. I think there's, in the same way, actually, if we relate it to humans, sometimes I hate to relate AI too much to humans, but it's in the same way that if you share it with 5 people and you pass it down the line, actually the third person will find something the first person didn't. And it's actually good to have a number of different people. It's also good to have, someone asked about using different models. I love that idea of saying, not because of the similar way that a developer shouldn't test their own code, but because different models are looking for different things. And I actually really love the idea of using a model like Gemini. I think I hear is a good one for code review and those types of things. It's really good. So yeah, typically don't run it once and assume, oh, it's going to be perfect. Run it once, maybe run it again, see if there's any other slight issues. The one thing I would say though is when you do ask an agent for that advice, make sure you ground it with some facts. So say, these are the best practices, which is exactly what we do for the quality scan here. These are the best practices, please judge it, and then tell me how I can improve it. And then what we do is, as part of the optimize, you then rerun the test and say, it's improved up to 95%. And then the question of going, well, is this 95% or 98%? Don't forget, Claude or whatever your agent is has still got to invoke it. And there's a lot of work that probably needs to be done in those agents to actually activate the skills correctly as well. So there's a whole bunch there as well. But yeah, running it maybe a couple of times is probably a good idea, but you plateau after a while after that.
Thank you very much. That's quite interesting, actually. My main question is, you've answered most of them anyway. My main question is, where does memory, because I noticed that different models, when you change the elemental values of the memory, behave differently.
Yeah.
Where does memory come in mitigation?
Memory in terms of,
especially
in terms of like
memory.
It's history.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah, sir.
So there's a couple.
Agent memory.
So for example,
agent memory.
Agent memory. So for example, if I was to run something in Claude today and I come back tomorrow, is it remembering what I did? Okay. Yeah, it's a really good question. And this is actually where specs and skills are really, really valuable. Because what you want to do is memory should be, what you really want is to tell the agent things that are short-lived and have the agent refer to things that are long-lived. So where things are well-grounded, that should be part of a specification or something which the agent should always be able to refer to. If you don't have that in that kind of a place, it will always, every single time its memory goes, it'll always be asking the same questions. So for example, if I'm in Claude, and let's resume something like, let's resume this. If I was to type in /context now, This is going to provide me with some stuff. This is essentially everything here is my messages. So this is everything in purple there are my messages. It understands what I'm talking about and it has that as part of its context. There are other things which it has loaded in. For example, skills. 559 tokens are being taken up by skills. There are other things in its rules, in its Claude MD, its Agents MD, whatever, that are there as grounded facts. And every single time that app loads, it reads that. So there are things that should be grounded facts, and those should be a part of the application specification, a part of the skills that are always there ready to reference. So that as soon as it tries to do something, if it isn't loaded, it'll do it again. For example, if I was to say, what is it, compact, let's say. No, what, is it clear? No, it's reset. Clear. There you go. Clear conversation history and free up context. If I was to run context now, I get virtually no messages in my context. The memory is clear. If I was to ask it a question now, though, whereby the answer is in the skill or the answer is in a spec somewhere in my project, it will find it, or it should find it, and then it has that memory. So make sure what is clear and grounded information that it should always know is somewhere it can find it in a skill, a rule, or a specification that it knows where it is. If it's not, and it's short term, that's what messages are for. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yeah, especially here.
I wanted to ask about how do you reduce your usage limits?
Yep.
Or because I know especially with Claude, it uses a lot of usage limits. And yeah.
Yeah, really good question.
Tokens is the new oil.
How do you reduce usage limits? I mean, if I knew that, I'd be a millionaire probably, because I'll just spread it across the web. So usage limits, particularly the way Claude are doing that right now, is pretty nasty, because I know I've heard so many people, particularly in the last week, talk about their usage limits hitting. To be honest, the way I would get around usage limits is to be agent agnostic. I would get around usage limits by saying, right now I'm going to use Claude Code, and then as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Codex, and as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Open Code, and as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Goose. And I think it's actually it's a very healthy thing for us to do anyway, because to be honest, Claude Code is sitting there at the top right now. It won't always be. I remember all the rave of Cursor a while back, and that was going to always be there. I think doing it in you do get off-peak limits. I think their Cursor Claude right now have doubled, I think, their weekend usage and off-peak. That would help. But I think, yeah, avoiding bloat, I would say, in your context is probably the best way of doing that. And if you can do that, it'll not just reduce your limits, but it'll actually make it more effective as well. And the way to reduce bloat is just make sure what's in your Claude MD and your rules files are just what is needed. Don't try and put everything in there, because it actually confuses it as well. And the skills MD and things like that, only make sure you are adding the skills that you really care about. I think those two alone are probably very, very valuable. Anyone else have any ideas or thoughts about how to make best use of your usage limits?
Can I please ask to hold the thought and ask you during the break?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we have a square-shaped chocolate cake waiting for us. Let's thank Simon and go get some cake.
And one thing, if I may, if I can just add, because Sam will kill me if I don't. In June 1st, 2nd, we actually have an AI DevCon conference, and it's happening here in London. Sammy is showing the QR code just there
on the screen,
and she's there's a 50% off QR code there using code AIND50, which reduces it from £180 to 90.
You register before the end of the week, it'll be £75 for a 2-day ticket with workshops and a point.
Wow. This is like QVC. If you have to do that within the next 5 hours. So yeah, check that out. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Right. Now, who's got the best cake cutting skills? Who's good with a knife and a cake? I can already see the chocolate inside and Nutella and strawberry. I have some anniversary stickers. Okay, everyone, if you had your cake, please start taking your seats. We're about to resume our meetup in 2 minutes. The cake is still here. I don't know, I had some, I'm all right. The cake will be here, don't worry, but we need to see our next talk.
Yes, he's that team.
Connect to Zoom.
Yes.
Okay, everyone, please start taking your seats. The cake is still here, and you can have a slice afterwards. Oh, please, yeah, I need a bigger. What, you want to follow? Everyone, please start taking your seats. I'm gonna use this. I have this thing here.
What's this thing going?
Yes. It's just
something.
slides.
Yeah, I know, but maybe I thought maybe I'm overthinking it. Like streaming is still working or something like that.
No. It's just celebrating your lights. It's just fun lights. Okay, everyone. How many of you visited a website called SSL Labs to check how strong your SSL certificate is? Have you seen? Yay! Many of you. How many of you have seen the grades that the website is giving you? Like your SSL certificate strength is A+, or is B-, or it's F because you failed every single check. So this gentleman here is responsible for that website, is responsible for that technology. And Neon Research has been working on SSL technology and cryptography for over two decades, writing articles, blogs, creating tools for the community to make sure that the communication is secure. Because obviously, SSL is the lifeblood communication channel, which makes sure that nasty people like people in the middle cannot intercept communication and cannot decrypt it. And of course, there's lots of cryptographic protocols in the early days, which came with various vulnerabilities. We had padding oracle and lots of other interesting SSL exploits. Let's hear about how you can actually defend your PKI estate, your SSL estate in 10 easy steps. And let's all give Anne a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Sam. I wouldn't say that all the steps are easy. Some of them are. So as Sam mentioned, digital certificates are the kind of cornerstone of our security. And the way our public PKI works, give me a sec, I think there's some echo here. The way our public PKI works is optimized for the default use case. And the default use case is that it works when nobody is attacking you. And what most companies don't really realize that if you have a high value property, if you have something that you need to defend, you need to take additional steps to secure your public PKI estate. And today I'm going to tell you what you need to do. There are these 10 steps. Basically, what I'd like to happen today is that I'm going to brief you on the possibilities, and then maybe you go back to your office and you think about which of these steps are appropriate for your use cases, and maybe there's going to help you kind of improve your PKI posture, as it will. So the good news is that the last 15 years have actually been quite good for encryption. We saw two major events. One was the birth of TLS 1.3. This is a protocol that introduced modern cryptography for everybody, and then at the same time displaced the legacy craft that we used to have in a variety of protocols that we had before. And then there was Let's Encrypt. Launched in 2015, the rise of free certificates. Actually, these two things kind of combined. Today, virtually every website is encrypted. So this is quite fantastic and quite good news. Unfortunately, the PKI, the underlying PKI, and the way we create digital certificates, the way you authenticate is as insecure as it's ever been. As you will see in my talk, we've become a little bit better at maybe protecting, being able to detect certain attacks, but the root causes of insecurity, they remain. And they have to be addressed, and this is what my talk is about. There was kind of a turning point when it comes to security of PKI, and this is in 2011, the infamous DigiNotar situation, where DigiNotar was a very small Dutch CA, and their security got completely compromised. It was so bad that we actually never got to the bottom of exactly what had transpired, but we do know a couple of things. One thing is that someone broke into their systems and issued themselves approximately 500 certificates for some of the top properties in the world. You know, the usual, all the search engines, Google and whatnot. And the other thing is these certificates were actually used to attack approximately 300,000 users. And actually, if you see these little dots, that's where the users were. These are normal people who are kind of going about their daily lives, trying to access web email, maybe even their banking systems and other things. They didn't realize that all their traffic was being rerouted through the attacker systems, because these fraudulent certificates were just good as the real ones. And the attacker got access to all the sensitive data that was in the plain text. And you know, this had never happened before. It has never happened since. And however, you may be thinking, oh, this is great, but actually the same very thing could happen today, because we still have the same problems. So I have three things I want to talk to you today. Is first is, can someone get a certificate for my domain name? If they can we detect them? And the best possible outcome is that, can we actually prevent this from happening in the first place? As Sam's mentioned, I've been in this field for quite a while. You may have come across SSL Labs. That's probably the most popular product I've done. There's also Mod Security, which is interestingly now it's part of OWASP, because I made it open source, and eventually OWASP is now its home. My wife tells me I need to put OWASP London, the OWASP London logo here, because I used to be a chapter leader back in 2009. I kept the fire alive. I don't think I was a very good chapter leader, because not many people were coming to my meetings, but I kept the fire alive until other people like Sam here came. Most of what I'm talking about today is based on the experience I've gained working on my startup Hardenize, where we were protecting the PKI estates of some of the largest companies in the world. My startup had been acquired by a company called Ristic, and I'm there. I still work there as a chief scientist. So
My talk is structured as follows. So I'm going to give you a brief background on how public PKI works. Then we're going to jump into two defensive technologies we can use to protect our PKI estates. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the 10 steps, and we're going to kind of discuss what you can do with that. So the issue with public PKI is that this is a system that's designed for everybody to use. And if you think about it, we have hundreds of millions of websites out there. We have millions of developers. We have billions of people, billions of devices. And we need a system that's kind of easy enough to use so that the whole thing works. And this system has actually been fantastic. It's a little known fact that there's one guy called Kip Hickman who designed the whole of our, actually he designed the first version of the SSL protocol, as well as how PKI works in 3 months working in Netscape back in 1995. And we still to this very day have that very system. And if you want to get a certificate, what you need to do, you need to request it. And this is I think there's something here that's actually not seen on my screen. I think it's not getting through. But anyway, basically you want a certificate. You want to put a website online, you go to a certificate authority and you request a certificate as proof of who you are. And then the certificate authority will actually perform some sort of authentication. And we have a term in security, of course, that we call trust on first use, or TOFU. And basically it's the very same thing, like the CA may come knocking at my door. I open the door and say, oh, well, I am who I've opened the door, so therefore I'm the owner of this house. They give me a digital identity, a digital ID that I can take with me. And then from there on, until my ID expires, I can use it with other people to prove that I'm the owner of the house on which door they knocked. This is exactly the same system. You may be thinking, surely it's much more complicated than that. No. This is what we have. It's very much trust on first use. And because this system is designed to work for everybody, it's not based on any secure protocols. The system that we use to issue certificates today is essentially based on proving control of a particular part of infrastructure. So if I want a certificate for PayPal.com, if I can put a token, if I can put some random number, if I can publish it to PayPal.com, that's enough for a CA, and they will give me a certificate. And the way this works is a CA has to first issue a DNS request, because they need to find the IP address behind the name PayPal.com, and they'll use DNS for that. And DNS, as we're using it today, is not authenticated. As DNS queries travel across the internet, they're exposed. And whoever can gain access to the underlying internet connection can actually manipulate these queries, and they can do with DNS as they please. Once the DNS is resolved and we have the IP address, the second leg of the process happens. And this is where the CA will go to the website, by using this IP address, and they will look into a so-called well-known place. And if they see the number they expect to see there, that's going to make them happy, and they're going to give me a certificate. So there are kind of 3 things you can do and how you can mess with the system. You can hijack the DNS queries. You can intercept the underlying network communication. If you think about that, the internet is very, very complex, and any piece of traffic is going to travel over dozens of destinations and routers and hops until it reaches the destination. If anyone can interdict this traffic anywhere, they can change it, and they can do as you want. And finally, there's a type of attack called BGP attack, where attackers can actually influence how packets are routed on the internet, and then they can pretend to be someone else, and they could get a certificate for someone else. So that's the first part of the problem. And there's the second part of the problem, which is kind of, maybe for me at least, more worrying, is that we actually don't have any technical controls in place to ensure that CAs only issue certificates when they're asked by their rightful owners. Today, any certificate authority can issue a certificate for any property. and there's nothing we can do to stop that. So I was kind of curious to understand who are these organizations who are controlling the global trust. And there's a project called CCIDB. This is a project that all the big root stores use to track the CAs. And I looked into it, I did some basic analysis, and it transpires that there are 94 different organizations that can issue certificates that are going to be trusted by one of the big 4 root stores. And if you look inside, if you want a certificate that's going to be trusted by all 4, then it's 39 different organizations. And these 39 organizations, actually, they're spread across 22 different countries. This world has never been more complex than it is today. So if you're thinking these different jurisdictions, different countries who are presumably, some countries are in wars with some other countries, and yet we have a global system that's kind of built on global trust. And here we have a loophole where any CA can issue a certificate for any property, but in some cases, actually CAs can be compelled legally by their own governments to do things that maybe they're not supposed to be doing. And if you are running an important enough website, this is something that has to be in your threat model, and you have to think about, okay, is this possible? Is it going to happen? What can I do to protect? The summary of the attack vectors is kind of as follows. The first on the list is active network attacks, so interfering with BGP, with routing, with DNS, with network traffic. The second is actually direct infrastructure attacks. Anything, if someone can attack your DNS servers and exploit them, they can probably get certificates for your properties. The third is misconfiguration. There's a type of attack called dangling DNS, where DNS often points to the wrong IP address. Whoever is in the receiving end and controls the IP addresses that your DNS points to, they can get your certificate. So this is actually quite common. We built a system in our product that continuously scans all DNS entries and resolves all IP addresses and tries to find the ownership behind those names in order to prevent attacks like that. And finally, we have the CA attacks. CAs themselves are a huge attack surface because their security can be compromised, they can be socially engineered, or they can be legally compelled to do things that they're not supposed to. Just to show you that this is not just theory, I've collected a nice kind of collection of these real life exploits. The first on my list is actually, it's first because it's recent and it was discovered late last year. We've had one small CA called FINA from Croatia, and they had been caught issuing 12 different certificates for the IP address that belongs to Cloudflare over the period of 18 months, I think. And simply they're not authorized to do it. In the end, they were caught by a tool called certificate transparency, which I'll talk about. Then there was the other situation where we had an entire TLD.CD. They had misconfigured name servers, and someone, an ethical hacker, helpfully, they managed to redirect 50% of all of their DNS traffic to their servers, and they could do as they pleased with redirecting traffic and or any website under the TLD, and of course getting the certificates. Then there was a BGP attack against a cryptocurrency website. The attackers rerouted the network traffic, their IP address, then got a certificate, and then used the certificate to steal $2 million. And then my favorite is actually one that we think it's believed that it's been done by a legal authority of a security agency of some sort in Germany. There's a messaging server, there's a messaging protocol called XMPP, and a website called jabber.ru. And at some point, the traffic on the network interface of this server that was running the messaging servers, that got interrupted for a split second. And then only later it transpired that someone had hijacked the network connection and started to route all the network traffic through themselves. And as soon as they did that, they actually obtained a valid certificate from Let's Encrypt. And then they used that certificate, which was misissued, to record all traffic, messaging traffic going to jabber.ru. And this actually took some time. it remained undetected until, ironically, the attackers themselves forgot to renew the certificate, at which point the messaging server started to throw errors, and then the administrator was confused because they looked at the certificates on their server and it was fine. And then it transpired, oh, right, this is not the same certificate. The actual certificate visible from the outside is running somewhere else. And this is how, now we have this is a very interesting use case as to what's possible and what things we can defend from. The point, I think, of these historical cases is that the network is not secure. And we need cryptography to make it secure. Unfortunately, the way we're making it secure today is using digital certificates, and then it's a chicken and egg situation. But there are some ways we can do this to resolve this, and I'll talk about that. There are two defense technologies that I'm going to mention today, as the first is certificate transparency. If you recall the attack I mentioned earlier, DigiNotar, Google decided at that point, okay, this is not acceptable, there's too much insecurity. At that point, a lot of people were trying to fix PKI ecosystem, and Google decided that they were going to keep it, but they're going to make it kind of radically transparent. And they introduced this concept of certificate transparency, where they added step number 4 to the workflow. Whereas just prior to issuance, all certification authorities were required to deposit the newly issued certificates to so-called CT logs. And these CT logs are independent third parties that can be trusted. And these CT logs use a lot of cryptography to maintain a full record of all certificates issued worldwide, where you can't just pull one and then the system can't detect there's such a thing. It's a Merkle tree if you into cryptography. And then this has been tremendously useful and successful, because now in Web PKI at least, we have a full record of all issued certificates. This system has been recording billions of certificates every year. And this is a screenshot of the dashboard run by Cloudflare, where we can see that at the time of I took the screenshot, there were 2.4 billion valid certificates and 1 billion new certificates issued every month. And this is going to accelerate because the lifetime of certificates is being reduced. By 2029, we're going to go down to just 47 days maximum lifetime of certificates. So we're going to see a great many certificates added to the certificate transparency ecosystem. And the reason why this city has been successful is because suddenly we had full visibility in what is doing. And this helped us tidy up, enforce standards, and enforce security. Any party in the world can actually monitor all the content in these city logs. And that helps you if you're owner of a property. What you can do, and I'll talk about this later on, if you know what domain names you have, you can just keep looking at this infinite fire hose of certificates to find the certificates that belong to you. And suddenly you have full visibility into your certificate inventory. And this you can then use to power a number of additional functions such as discovery. You can use that to check your certificates for expiration. Migration to post-quantum cryptography is a big thing. It's very important that you know where cryptography is. Well, guess what? You can do that with a certificate transparency. Unfortunately, there are some gaps. It's work in progress. We haven't quite finished the system. The gaps are that CT is enforced by browsers, which means that at the point that the browser contacts a website, they check if the certificate is CT compliant. If the certificate is not CT compliant, they're going to reject it. Some other platforms have added support as well. So Apple has been on board since the early days. CT started in 2018. I think Apple was pretty much at the same time. Android was a latecomer. They only added support for certificate transparency in last year in version 16, and it was optional, but they're going to make it mandatory in Android 17, which is, I think, due this year. The problem is this is not enforced anywhere else. So unless you're using browsers and unless you're using kind of the default networking stacks on Android and Apple, you gain no protection whatsoever. If you're using one of the dozens of other languages and libraries that are out there, you don't have the protection of CT, and it's still technically possible to issue certificates outside CT. I'll give you a really good example where this is a big problem, SMTP. Virtually all of the secrets we have in the world are transported via email. And then at the moment, CT acts as huge deterrence, because if the attackers know that if there's a misissued certificate, but that's going to be monitored and observed, they're going to think twice whether they're going to attack someone. However, if you can legally compel a CA to issue a certificate outside CT, then you can use that to attack SMTP servers, which do not enforce anything like this, and no one is really tracking these things. So intercepting email, for example, actively has never been, it's as easy now as it's been since the beginning of PKI. So that's one of the defense mechanisms we have. The other is called certification authority authorization. If you recall, any CA can issue certificates for your properties. So what we're doing now, we're asking them to be nice. And we've come up with a protocol called CAA, which basically introduces step number 2, which is kind of marked in red. Before CAs issue certificates, they're required to, again, this is not something we can enforce. We ask them to do it, and we occasionally check. They're required to check our CAA configuration. And what CAA is a policy. It's a policy that we can stick into DNS. It's provided as a CAA DNS record, resource record. And what we do in this policy, well, we simply say, here are the CAs that we like. And if you're on the list, you can issue a certificate from my domain name. If you're not on the list, you can't. And it's simple as that. And then every time a CA wants to issue a certificate, they have to check this policy. If they're not on the list, they have to abandon issuance. And this is a great and powerful tool that you can use basically to reduce your attack surface. If you think about it, we have dozens of these organizations across 22 different countries. The attacker can choose the weakest link. And this is historically what's been happening. It's not the biggest CAs that have been compromised, it's the smallest ones. It's usually the ones that have been doing certificates kind of on the side, and there are quite a few of those. However, with these things, with CAA, you can just choose the 3 best CAs in the world, the ones that you really trust, and you say, I'm going to get my certificates from them, and then it's great. You will have reduced your attack surface by a huge margin, maybe 90%. Now, the default CAA has a problem, and the problem is, practically speaking, today you have to choose Let's Encrypt, just as one example, as your CA, because Let's Encrypt is everywhere. And then even though you can reduce your CAA to just them, well, the attacker is likely going to use a free CA to attack you. And very likely they're going to use Let's Encrypt. The attackers who attack Jabber.io, they got their certificate from Let's Encrypt. So CAA is not helping you there. However, CAA ACME extensions are, and they're really a powerful tool that not only allow you to restrict to a CA, they allow you to restrict to a specific account that you hold with your CA. And this is very, very powerful because suddenly only those who control your account, and this is typically done with a username and a password or cryptography, only those can issue certificates for a property, and this is fantastic. The other thing that extensions do, they can restrict CA ACME validation methods, which is also going to be useful as well. I'm going to mention that some CAs have a proprietary way of kind of doing the same thing. So if you have an account with DigiCert, for example, this is how you would go into your web control panel, you would find the account ID, and you could restrict and say, well, DigiCert can issue certificates for me, but only if they're issued from this account. And the reason why I'm mentioning DigiCert here, because if you're going to be restricting issuance, you have to have some redundancy. So you can't just choose one CA, and they go down, and you're prevented from having certificates. So you have to have at least 2. Today, Let's Encrypt supports CAA extensions, and you could use DigiCert as the second CA using the proprietary account locking. So basically, what's happening now with the combination of certificate transparency, that will first give you visibility, and then you can use CAA. Just this month, the rules have changed. And for the first time in ever, CAs are allowed to obey DNSSEC when issuing certificates. If you're not familiar with DNSSEC, this is a piece of technology that's very popular, but gives integrity to the DNS layer. If you're using DNSSEC, no one can actually spoof your DNS queries because DNSSEC introduces cryptographic validation. And this is the only strong way to authenticate certificate issuance right now. So simply speaking, if you want to have strong cryptographic issuance and bypass a lot of the potential weaknesses, what you're going to do, you're going to create a CAA policy, and you're going to choose a couple of CAs to work with. Within those CAs, you're going to restrict issuance to just the accounts that you hold with those CAs, and then you're going to enable DNSSEC. And with these things, you will be way ahead of everybody else on the internet, and your certificate issuance will be fully secure, which is very, very rare. I think I've seen this done on Slack, by the way. I think there's so few companies that do this today, but I came across just by accident of Slack doing something like that. So this is this is pretty much the introduction. What remains from here on? I think we're on time. It's kind of a PKI posture management blueprint. It's a series of steps. You don't necessarily have to follow them in any order. I think the first couple of ones make sense, one after another. However, at the high end, it's a bit of a pick and mix, and you can choose which ones make sense. Step number 1 is the easy one, is you have to start using city monitoring. You basically want situational awareness. You want to know what's going on. And it's not that difficult. You just have to have, I say just, have a complete inventory of your top level domain names. Now, I worked with a lot of big companies, and this is not as easy as it sounds. A lot of big companies, they have tens and thousands and tens of thousands domain names spread across many subsidiaries, and it's actually quite difficult to get that list. But this is something you have to do as a starting point. But once you have the list, you can start monitoring the fire hose of certificate transparency and building your own inventory of certificates. Once you have all your certificates in one place, you can mine them for all the subdomains that are in the certificates. And this enables you to proceed to step number 2. Now you have a full inventory of your subdomains, which is very valuable. Most companies don't have this. With that in hand, you can start scanning your network. You can start scanning your DNS for a variety of different protocols. And I've just put some of my favorite ones here. Anything related to TLS, PKI, your security posture, strict transport security, the list is actually quite long. In the context of our conversation, I'm just focusing on one, which is basically CAA. At this point, you want to know if you're using CAA already. Again, if you're in a big place, you don't know what the other department is doing. You don't know what the other subsidiary is doing. So you need to, as a baseline, understand if you're using CAA anywhere. And then at this point, you decide, right, I want to use CAA to improve my security posture and make myself a smaller target. And there are a couple of ways you can do this. What we used to recommend as a starting point to most of our customers is to use what I call the easy CAA. By enabling city monitoring, you're probably going to see that you're using only 5 out of 34 CAs in the world. And without having to change anything about how you do things and how you get your certificates, you can just deploy a CAA configuration that restricts the issuance only to those CAs that you're already using. And just by doing this one thing, you're reducing the attack surface from all the CAs out there to just the selected few. And then over time, you can further trim this list. In most situations, you don't really need more than 3 or 4. So there's going to be a huge reduction in your attack surface. And now, the only thing, if you want to catch misissuance, what you need to do is just monitor the global certificate stream. If you see a certificate issued for your property, but it's not one of the list CAs on the list, you know that you have misissuance. And then the second step, which is probably not very feasible to do across your entire estate, especially if you have thousands and thousands of domain names, but most companies have a few that are very important. For these, you can deploy a robust CAA, and using the method I discussed earlier, where you log down your CAA configuration, you choose just a couple of CAs, you log down to specific accounts. And this is going to further reduce the attack surface to a sliver of what it currently is. Step number 5. This is about what I call high issuance city monitoring. And this is a bit difficult to do because certificates, they all look alike. There's nothing in certificates to, if I gave you 2 certificates that belong to you, you couldn't, and then give you another that's a misissued one, you just by looking at the data in them, you wouldn't be able to figure out which one's misissued and which one's not. The only way to do this robustly is to have a full inventory of the certificates you've obtained yourself. And the way you do this, you centralize your certificate issuance. Let's say you get all your certificates from one place. And in that one place, every certificate comes to your hands and you put it in a database and say, this is a good one. And then again, you're monitoring a global certificate stream. And if you see a certificate that's not on your list, you know that you're observing a misissuance. And the way you can do this in some cases, for example, if you chose DigiCert, just as one example, in the interest of being impartial, there are many good CAs out there, right? They all give you APIs and you can connect to their platforms and you can just download all the certificates you've issued with them. And that's going to help discovering the known good certificates and help you discover any misissuances. Step number 6 is about securing your DNS layer. As I mentioned earlier, this is something you can do today with DNSSEC. Unfortunately, DNSSEC is sort of a divisive technology. There are some people who like it, and there are a lot of people who don't like it. And I think percentage-wise, it's single digits. It's low single digits deployment worldwide. I think Slack have them and a bunch of other places do. However, if you enable DNSSEC, and these days this is sort of easy, we have some people for Cloudflare here. I think they sort of pioneered it. You click a button and there you go, you have DNSSEC. Once you do that, nobody can any longer spoof your DNS and it makes you much more secure. However, if you can't use DNSSEC or you don't want to, there's another thing what you can do. In order to defend against BGP attacks, CAs are now required to use something called MPIC. MPIC is a multi-perspective issuance corroboration process where when they check things, they look for 3 or 4 different geographically diverse perspectives. And all these perspectives, they have to match before they issue something. So if someone's going to be spoofing your DNS, they're going to be maybe performing a BGP attack in one part of the world, because the way these BGP attacks work, they're difficult to do globally. You sort of attack the adjacent network. If you spread your DNS, the simple act of distributing your DNS servers, you just use a managed DNS provider, that's going to put your DNS server all across the world, and then BGP attacks, just as one example, they're going to be much more difficult to perform. However, I would say DNSSEC is easier in the sense that it's robust and foolproof. Nothing's going to give you the same level of security, but certainly MPIC is going to help you. Step number 7 is actually monitoring for active attacks. If you recall, again, my favorite jabber.ru attack, a simple active monitoring would have helped. And if you know what certificate you're expecting to see, but you're seeing something else, that means that you're under an active attack. Monitoring from different parts of the world every minute or so. This is not that difficult, but it's actually going to go a long way towards detecting these attacks. And at this point, we are in the pick and mix territory. So step number 8 is kind of a very difficult one. This is something that's still used by Google and is still used by Mozilla. The problem with web PKI, public PKI, is that as domain owners, we don't have a way to endorse certificates. And if someone gets a certificate in our name, we can't tell the world, well, this one is not ours. Well, this is something you can do, and this is that mechanism. And today, Google ships with some instructions that they apply every time you're using Chrome and you go to google.com. Chrome will use some information that's embedded in Chrome itself to verify the certificate on google.com and make sure that is the expected certificate. A decade ago, this used to be much more popular. This is called static public key pinning, but it's a very dangerous mechanism because it requires a great deal of sophistication and understanding of PKI. And if you mess it up, you can't recover from it. If you mess it up, the only thing you can do is wait for Google to release another version of Chrome, and all your users have to upgrade before your website was going to start working again. And clearly, for virtually all companies in the world, this is not acceptable. This is why people are afraid to use this mechanism. But clearly, I'm sorry, I'm pressing the thing. Clearly, if you're Google and if much of the world's email is going to Gmail, and then it's such a valuable thing to attack, then maybe for them that's acceptable, and they can, and they're also sophisticated and they know how to use it. I'm going to leave you with step number 9 to kind of think about, if you're not afraid of 47-day certificates, maybe you can try 6-day certificates. And this is a brand new thing that's just become available in January. Let's Decrypt supports them. Google's CA also supports them. And the point of this certificate is that famously, revocation checking doesn't actually work in web PKI. The reason why it doesn't work because browsers stopped checking for revocation. The idea with revocation is, oh, you have a certificate, it's going to be valid for a longer period of time, but if someone breaks and steals it, we're going to tell the world that it's no longer valid. And browsers, Chrome actually, and then everybody else decided, oh, we're not going to bother with revocation checking because it's slowing us down. So that's why revocation checking on the internet no longer works. And short-lived certificates, because they're all only valid for 6 days, they don't have to be checked for revocation. If someone steals your short-lived certificate, on average, it's going to expire in only 3 days. And you don't really care. The window of opportunity for the attacker is so small that these certificates are not checked for revocation. And this is actually better performance security-wise than even if you had revocation checking, because that would give you a window of opportunity of 7 days for the attackers. And I have step 10, which is that if you're at this point, I think much of my talk was focusing on how we have a public system that's designed for the general public and is not designed for the top security use cases. We all have to use public PKI for our public websites, obviously, because we want our websites to work with everybody else. However, there's a number of use cases where we don't have to have a service available to the public. To give you one example, if you have a mobile app, maybe you have a private API that your mobile app uses, and it's very easy for you to get the certificates from public PKI, but with that certificate, you get all the weaknesses and insecurities of the public ecosystem. In this case, because you are the only entity talking to your API endpoint, what you can do, you can switch and get your certificates from a private PKI. And then you no longer have to tolerate any of these securities, and you can have as much security as you want. And of course, the downside of this is you have to do everything by yourself. And then, of course, it requires much more expertise, requires much more time and so on, which is why it's a double-edged sword. So these are all 10 steps that I've had. I'm going to leave you, I know this is a lot. I've been trying to kind of keep it sort of shallow and go wide to kind of keep you informed, to give you talk about the possibilities. I actually have a white paper. Which is exactly the same talk, just written down with much more detail. We don't require registration. You can just download the white paper and you can read it, and it's going to go into much more detail. Operationally, you would need to deploy this sort of thing. If you get there, I have 3 more white papers talking about certificate lifecycle management, the ever popular post-quantum security, and TLS and PKI configuration. We have at Redshift, we have a free PKI monitoring tool that we launched in collaboration with Let's Encrypt. This will give you free access to certificate transparency instantly, so you can experiment with that and see how it goes. And finally, we have a free report tool. If you know about the SSL Labs, after SSL Labs, I built something called Hardenise, and Hardenise is conceptually the same, just covers all network protocols. It starts from a domain name registration, DNS, email, TLS, PKI, application security, and so on and so forth. And these reports are free, no strings attached. And I would encourage you to check your security there. It's a really useful tool. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think due to time shortage, we only have time for one question.
We have 10 minutes.
So you said that certificate transparency is a browser-based thing. With everybody using agents these days, browsing through Claude, have we regressed, or are they using CT in all of these stacks?
I think if you connect your, say, using Claude, if you tell Claude to use your Chrome browser, which is debatable and questionable, then you would be protected and you get the benefit of CT. But I imagine there's a great deal of libraries, and I don't think that any of the agents would be using and enforcing CT at all. It's not an easy thing to do, because to enforce CT, you have to have a policy. And these policies, famously, they go stale very quickly. So someone has to actively maintain these policies, keep them fresh, and distribute them to all the clients. And it's a lot of work, which is maybe why people don't like doing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this most insightful and I think very important presentation. My thoughts on certificates, what have been great, and I mentioned that have been great, while I somehow sometimes see them as a house of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Q day. Yeah, you heard of that?
Yeah.
So are there any plans or what might change?
So the things with post-quantum cryptography is that certificates are not in any immediate danger right now. There are 2 aspects of where quantum computers can break our security. The first and the pressing one is the key exchange in cryptography. Every time we communicate with a website, for example, there's a cryptographic session being generated, and there's a sort of a handshake in TLS. There's a TLS handshake. This handshake today has to be protected because there's a type of attack called, harvest now, decrypt later. And the point is that even though we don't have quantum computers today, we can capture this raw encrypted traffic and just keep it. If you think about it, the best case for this sort of attack is email. There's not that much email compared to everything else that's going on. Nations can capture all the email, keep it for 5, 10, 30 years, and they could break it when quantum computers become available. So on the web, this has been solved, at least nominally, because all browsers today support a new key exchange that deals with quantum computers, and that's fine. We probably are at least 5 years away until all servers start to support this key exchange. Certificates, they are ephemeral. The way we use certificates, we use them for authentication. It's a moment in time. So until quantum computers become a real thing, the certificates we have today are going to be fine. That said, Google is working on a next generation web PKI. If you're interested, I run a cryptography and security newsletter. It's currently monthly. goes by the name Feisty Ducks. You can look it up. Today we sent a newsletter talking about so-called Merkle tree certificates, or MTC. This is the next generation web PKI. It's currently being developed, it's being tested with Cloudflare, and if everything goes well, next year they're going to start building up the ecosystem. So maybe by the end of 27, this is something that we'll be able to put in production. Google is estimating that we need to protect ourselves by 29. So it's not very far away. Initially, we thought it might be 35, 30 to 2030. 29 is getting hot in the room. So we'll see.
This one.
Oh, I have a question. I mean, I wonder what your thoughts are on organization validation not being done before a certificate is issued. I know Let's Encrypt doesn't do it, but there are certain organizations who consciously do not want any organization validation carried out before they acquire a certificate.
So the question is about, so when you validate a certificate, there are certain levels of standard you can apply. And at the moment, virtually all certificates are domain validated, and they're based on proof of control. But we have two tiers. There's OV and EV. OV is organization validated, and this is where you check who is the entity behind the certificate. Personally, I quite like them. Maybe because I'm an advanced user, whatever it means, but I kind of know sometimes with whom I'm dealing with. And I've had, like, I'm here in Britain, I've had a number of cases where I buy something and suddenly I realize that it's a company outside the UK. And then I don't have the same guarantee. Returning things that you buy from outside the UK is really, it's a real hustle. I once bought something from China, and that was a bit getting my money back and shipping it in customs. So just for me personally, knowing the entity, that's a big thing. Browsers don't like it. And Europeans like it. In Europe, there's something called Quack. And they like to kind of put the identity of the websites out there. I think we have to do what browsers want. And it's the browsers world. We just live in it, basically.
That's a fair point. Fine.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Now it's